Hello, fungi friends. I just got back from Mendocino, and it's time for me to process all the mushrooms that I brought back. So I'm going to give you guys a quick tour around the board of what I found, and then I'm going to get to cleaning and cooking mushrooms so I can go to bed because it's late and I'm tired. But I got to deal with this. So starting at the top left here, this is a cauliflower mushroom or sparasis. I love these. They're really, really good to eat. This one was growing at the base of a dying, sort of dead pine tree. But they have really beautiful, kind of piney, woodsy flavor and scent, and a nice, kind of almost crunchy, slightly chewy, cartilaginous-like texture kind of thing. A little bit like a wood ear, but different. I like using them as like a pasta substitute because they make great noodles. They're also delicious just right up on their own. There is the ubiquitously known fly agaric, the Mario mushroom. This one, the veil hasn't even opened up yet, but this is Amanita muscaria. So I've got quite a few of these, some of which I'm thinking about like time-lapsing, although I can see these are already even starting to open up. And if I don't time-lapse them, I'm just going to boil them all and turn them into food. Because while they are toxic raw, you can either double boil them like I'm going to do to pull the toxin out, or you can dry them and then turn the caps into a tea. Usually you boil it and add some lemon juice and stuff like that, but you're trying to decarboxylate all the ibotenic acid into muscimol, which is entheogenic and legal in most places except for like Louisiana for whatever reason. Pretty good taps on that, eh? All right, so that's the muscaria, which is toxic, edible, and trippy all at the same time. People are always very excited about muscaria. Then we have three things in the Gomphales order. So this is what's known sometimes as a lilac chanterelle or pig's ear. That's what I usually call it. Gomphis clavatus. Sometimes it's called the purple chanterelle or lilac chanterelle because it's got this kind of like decurrent ridges that run down the stipe and it's kind of purple. But these are pretty distinctive. These are edible, although not exceptional. And then this is the woolly chanterelle, Turbonalis flacosus, and this one is mildly toxic. This is Romeria ariospora, beautiful red coral mushroom. This one's actually edible. I know it looks like it should be toxic, but it's not. You can eat it, it's fine. We've got some chanterelles. So this is a beautiful golden chanterelle, Cantharellus formosus. So I found this with Doug Fur. And I've also got a white chanterelle, Cantharellus subalbidus, which is the white chanterelle. So I found these usually closer to tan oak. Let's see, now we're going to get into the boletes. So boletes are sort of cap and stem mushrooms that have little pores underneath. So they're not considered polypores. They are still cap and stem mushrooms as opposed to them that's usually grown on dead wood. But these do have these sort of like angled little yellow pores. Unfortunately, my camera won't let me get close enough to really show you the difference there, but I hate the new iPhone. It won't refocus for me. Anyhow, this is Suillus lakei, painted Suillus. This one's it's probably easier to see these big, wide yellow pores on this one. But this is Suillus cerulescens, I'm pretty sure. This is Gomphidius organensis, which is technically a gilled mushroom, gilled bolete that is parasitic on other boletes. So this thing parasitizes the mycelium of this thing, so you always see them growing together. Then we have some scaber stalks. So these are mushrooms that have little black scabers and dots on the stipe. Tend to be very, very solid, have these kind of like whitish pores underneath the cap. And I've got two species here, one of which has a darker brown cap, and one that's a little bit more orangey copper. So these are pretty good. There is some caution with eating lexinums, and that some people can have negative reactions. I never have. I'm just sure to cook them very, very well. They eat them all over Eastern Europe, and they love them. And then we have the kings. So this is porcini, or this is a porcino because it's a fat little piggy. But this is king bolete, Boletus edulis. So we've got some nice reticulation on the stipe there, and these white pores, they'll turn yellow and brown as they kind of get older. This one was getting gnawed on by a slug, but it's part of why I noticed it, because it was sort of the white part was facing up towards me. So that's a solid one. I found a really nice one today. It definitely has some bug damage, and I'm kind of ignoring that for now just to keep it a nice big perfect looking mushroom, but that is a big fatty king bolete. Ooh. Yeah, love that. You gotta give them taps. It's too much fun not to. All right, well, we've got our taps in. So I need to do some prioritization here. I think the chanterelles are probably just going to go in the fridge. That's fine. The Amanita muscaria I need to process tonight. The Lexinum I need to process tonight. And probably the king boletes I got to process tonight. So we're going to do a lot of washing and chopping and all the things. Oh, gosh, I'm tired. I don't know why I always leave this till like the end of the night. Could have done this at 9, but no, my ass had to wait till midnight, and now it's late and I'm sleepy. But it is what it is. Sorry. Get some fresh water in this pot. Yeah, I guess I'll start boiling the Amanita muscaria first, and then we'll work our way through the Lexinums. I'll probably just cook all the kind of older, weird-looking Lexinum and put the younger ones in the fridge, because they will hold. I don't think the porcini are going to hold super well, because a lot of them have a little bit of bug damage, and the porcini are just more prone to mold than the Lexinums. Especially all these really young ones are going to be great for at least a week. But these big spongy ones, those got to go. So that's what I'm working with. We're gonna bring. Oh God, I really should clean my sink before I started live streaming. It's fun. Okay, make a little bit of room. Yeah, and just start bringing amanitas over to the sink and washing them. So. Just ignore all the dirty dishes and stuff. It's fine. So, just trying to scrub off some of the dirt. I'm not harvesting these for the active components. In fact, I'm actually actively trying to leach out the active components in this mushroom. I know some people will see this and say, "Oh, bro, you're wasting it." To which I say, I harvested these as food with the intention of eating them as food. So I don't really see a waste in getting rid of the muscimol. I have a lot of dried amanita for making tea. If I want to do that, and I also have multiple different amanita tinctures that have already been extracted by other people. And if you've never tried Amanita muscaria, it's weird. It is, very small amounts feel a lot like alcohol. It sort of feels like you've had a nightcap, just like a little whiskey before bed. And I really do recommend only trying it kind of if you're close to going to sleep or at least taking a nap, because it can make you quite drowsy. You don't want to try to take Amanita muscaria and then go for a run. I feel like that would be not a good use of the medicine, as people say. I think it's really interesting when people decide that a certain compound serves as medicine. They stop calling it a drug and start calling it medicine, which, I mean, I guess from a prohibition standpoint, people are trying to affect the word usage, but it's also seems kind of weird and disingenuous to me when it's everything is a drug to some degree. Caffeine is definitely a drug, but the way we use caffeine, people don't like to think of it as a drug, because no one wants to admit they're a caffeine addict, They're addicted to this drug, and truth be told, they definitely are. know. People who don't get their coffee and get real frustrated, anxious, you know, headachy. They're addicted to a substance. It's interesting because I drink caffeine every day, pretty much. But I'm not a wreck without it. You know, I'm definitely happier with it. And if I didn't get enough sleep, I like absolutely need it. But for the most part, if it's like a weekend and I don't end up having it, I'm usually fine. I haven't experienced terrible like withdrawal symptoms from it, but then again, I drink, you know, usually coffee in the morning and tea throughout the day. But anyhow, yeah, if you take muscaria, Amanita extract kind of stuff, I do recommend doing it at night because you will get sleepy. I've never taken a really high dose. I've heard some people say really good things, but knowing how it's made me feel at a low dose is not something I'm interested in trying a high dose of, because it's kind of overwhelming and weird and doesn't necessarily feel great as a sensation in my experience. So, yeah. I know I made some videos about Amanita muscaria last year, and you know, one of my most viral videos here on YouTube is me talking about cooking and eating it, and I mean that's exactly what I'm doing now, except I'm doing all the step prep parts to make it safe to eat. When I cooked it in that other video, I literally just sautéed it in a pan, which you can safely do for about half a cap, I'd say, but you don't want to do with a larger amount of this mushroom because it can give you pretty severe GI upset. Sorry, I was just getting my cutting board together here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to boil these twice. I, you know, often will dry these and use the cap for tea and stuff like that, but I think today I'm just gonna boil them all and then freeze it all, so I have a stock bag of Amanita muscaria that I can use later on. And this is also to, like, you know, I have another video. Multiple of my videos on YouTube that have gone viral have been Amanita muscaria videos. And one of them, I'm just cutting up a muscaria. I was in Humboldt, and we picked one to take a photo with, and I was like, I don't really want this one. I'm just going to, like, cut it up. And people lost their ever-loving minds over me cutting up a mushroom in the woods. You know, I was accused of hurting nature and wasting it and all these other things, and sort of was like, well, I mean, were you going to come to the forest and eat this toxic mushroom? You know, like, it's in an area where there's hundreds of them. They're not rare, they're not threatened, they're not endangered. You know, I was sort of trying to, like, point out the sort of relative thing to people that it wasn't worth getting that upset about, but people just really wanted to be upset about me cutting up an Amanita muscaria with no purpose, no reason. So to all those people, here's your purpose, here's your reason. I'm at home, about to cut this and cook this and, I mean, not this moment, but eat this mushroom, because you can. So it's actually pretty good. Sorry, dropped the mic there. Oh, I see what happened. It's gets stuck on the kitchen island. Okay. All right, so I'm just dump that in. And keep cutting up the rest of this. There's not that much more. I've got some dirt on the other side there. Okay. Almost ready. boil up these muscaria, and we'll get working on what else are we gonna do. I guess the lexinum is probably the next priority. And I'm not worried about getting these completely clean because I'm about to boil them in 2 changes of water. So they will get another rinse as we go along here. Oops. And you'll see the color will kind of start leaching into the water. What I could do and what I might do, I haven't decided, is I could save the first boil from the muscaria, and that's essentially full of the active component, you know? So someone's joking if I saw Mario or Luigi when I picked these mushrooms. The answer is no, but Amanita muscaria are a great indicator species for porcini, king boletes. So I always stop and look around when I see Amanita muscaria because there's a good chance there'll be some nice little porcino buttons nearby. Okay, those are gonna go. Wait, I might bring you guys over to have me watch the washing of these guys. Oh goodness! Oh, so sticky. All right, I'm gonna pull you guys back over here so you can see what I'm doing at the sink. All right, that's pretty good. These are looking all right. I know from experience that these mushrooms are pretty meaty, pretty substantial. And this might be more than I can actually fit into my pan on the first pass around, but let's see if we can fit everything in best we can. Also gonna, I think, sever the caps and the stems here. I'll give these guys some thwacks before I cut them up, though. I used to do a lot of late night streaming on TikTok, and man, sometimes I'd like sitting there spanking mushrooms at 2 in the morning, and people from Thailand or Norway or something are just absolutely losing their shit. That was pretty funny. But TikTok ain't as much fun as it used to be. Things have changed. Ooh, this is a particularly wet, soggy one. I might put this one on the side for now. A couple of the bigger caps might be too soft. The stems stay pretty good, but when the caps get soggy, they really fall apart. Okay, I'm gonna just cut big chunks out of the stems and cut across them because they are fairly fibrous and they become really nice and meaty when you cook them down. But if you try to shred them now, they'll be tough. So I'm cutting big medallions here in the stipe. Just trying to get these processed mostly. I can always cut them up smaller later too, but for now, big chunks are best. The bigger a piece of mushroom is, when you go to cook it, the more texture it will retain, because mushrooms usually get quite a bit softer when you cook them, but it's really inconsistent. Like I don't know. Mushrooms have really cool textural properties. They're often like the opposite of meat, because when they're raw, they're kind of brittle and they can crack and they can shred them. But when they're cooked, that's when they get sticky and tacky and kind of moldable. I think instead of cutting them like that, I like cutting Lexinum caps in sort of big wedges. So I just like run my knife through. Cut sort of big thick slices, and I'll just cross hatch backwards. Okay, so now each piece has sort of a consistent amount of cap and pores. All right, getting there. There's a lot of mushrooms to cut up. Some of these bigger caps that I'm potentially putting to the side and not cutting up are ones that I could just dry instead, which might be what I'm gonna do. Okay, so I'm gonna dump all these into the pan over here and go back to cut it more. There's an update on the muscaria. It's boiling away. Let's check the comments. What are you guys talking about? We can't talk about psychedelic mushrooms, guys. That's a big no-no. Hate to tell you. No platform lets you talk about a Schedule 1 substance. So I cannot talk about those mushrooms, and I never show them on my channel. What we have here are Lexinum scaber stalks, which are fully legal edible mushrooms that I foraged up in Mendocino. Just to be really clear, nothing I'm doing is illegal. Nothing I'm doing is dangerous. I am just cooking edible mushrooms that I foraged in the wild because I am an expert forager and I know what I'm doing. I find it really funny when sometimes people see me in the woods and they'll sort of stop me with my basket and be like, "Gee, son, you sure you know what you're doing?" And like I know their heart's in a good place and they're coming from a place where they, they just want to make sure that I'm okay. But it's funny because it's like, well, sir, yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know all the mushrooms in my basket. Do you know anything about this? And they're like, well, no, I don't. That's why I want to make sure you're okay. I'm like, yeah, I got it. I'm good. Thank you. So it's everyone's sort of paternal instincts or maternal, some kind of instinct kicks in, I guess. But it's also just fear of mushrooms. People are just so afraid of mushrooms that they, I feel like more often than not, don't necessarily take the time to understand them. I was just talking to a parent the other day. She was like, I just tell my kids, all mushrooms are poisonous because then they won't, touch them. And I was like, no, like you can touch all mushrooms regardless. Even poisonous ones aren't going to harm you by just eating or like by just touching them. You have to actually eat them to have something harmful happen. And she was just so sort of resistant to the idea of like letting her kids touch mushrooms. And I was like, look, just teach them about the mushrooms instead of teaching them to fear them. It's like you don't even have to learn that much. Just teach your kids to not put them in their mouth. And like, once you can be sure that they're not going to just stick anything random in their mouth, which is, there's a certain age, usually by age 4 or something like that, you can make sure a kid isn't going to stick everything in their mouth, which can still happen at age 2 and 3. That's a good time to start teaching kids about mushrooms. I feel like maybe younger than 4, but certainly if you spend time in the woods with kids, they're gonna notice mushrooms. About my first memories of mushrooms were from age 3 or 4. Okay, so this muscaria is boiling down. Yeah, a nice little like orangey color in the water here. I'm gonna let that go just a little bit longer. And cut up some more of our lexinum here. This pan is going to be very, very full. Nice. Sure. more mushroom to bang through here. You know, this one's got a little bit of bug damage. I'm going to be weirdly picky about this one. All right. Okay. Into the pan we go. So there's the muscaria boiling away. It's getting all orangey. I'm going to put this over a nice medium-high heat. Sometimes I'll add water to boletes to kind of speed things along, but I know from experience these Lexinum have plenty of moisture in them, and they're going to just start breaking down and turn to a soup. It's going to take a while to cook down, but that's what we're here doing. So there's a bunch of salt. And let's deal with the Amanita muscaria. So come here, we'll turn this boil off for a second. Okay, so I boiled off some of the color and some of the toxin from Amanita muscaria. And at this point I probably could eat it, but there's still a chance of me getting some toxic effect. So I'm going to pour the water out. If I wanted to maximize my chance of having an entheogenic effect, I could save this water and add some lemon juice and probably cook it down for a little bit longer and make like a tea out of it. And that would give you some sort of effect. I can't say it's one that I would find pleasant, but it would certainly make me sleepy. So that's what Amanita muscaria can do for you. Some people swear it does all sorts of things, but you know, everyone has their own subjective experience, so don't believe everything you read on the internet. Including me, you don't need to take everything I say for granted. But I am giving you solid advice, and this is how you safely process Amanita muscaria as food, which is what I'm doing. Okay, I'm trying to do this one-handed, which is a little sketchy, but... Oops. There we go. All right. So there goes all that Amanita muscaria water, which I could save, but I'm not going to because it's going down the drain. So sorry all you budding psychonauts, say goodbye. Like I said, I have Amanita muscaria tincture and a bunch dried. So if I want to make an entheogenic tea, I can do that. Turn that heat back on, bring it up to boil one more time, and then it's good to go. Yeah, I mean, I really got most of the color out of there, so it just needs a little bit more to make sure it's safe. Here are these Lexinum doing their thing. You can see a little bit of blue staining on the edge there. It's pretty cool. That blue staining in these boletes is not due to active components. It's due to organic acids that are in the mushroom and an enzyme that turns those organic acids blue when exposed to oxygen. So that's what the blue color on these boletes is all about. Before anyone gets too excited. Yeah, none of these are psychedelic mushrooms. These are all just edible foraged mushrooms. I know it's generally a joke for anyone and everyone on the internet to assume that like anything to do with mushrooms is automatically drug related or trippy or something like that. But I'm really trying to like remove that stigma from mushrooms because it gets really tired after a while. Every time I'm like, yeah, I teach people about mushrooms. People are like, you mean like drugs? I'm like, no, I mean like mushrooms, like the ones you eat, the ones you see in the woods, the ones you can grow. I mean, there's such a phenomenal world of interesting mushrooms and fungi that are not psychedelic, and I have no problem with the psychedelics. They're great. It's just I hate that they dominate the conversation so much because it really like makes everything so unidimensional. When I talk about mushrooms and people are immediately just like drugs, and you're like, no, drugs are fine. Love drugs, but like, can we not talk about them on the internet? Because they're illegal and we're not allowed to talk about them. There are like, forums and things like that where you can go discuss them, but not here on social media. There's a prohibition against it. You certainly can cook those kinds of mushrooms, baghead, and I have, and they still do plenty. Trust me. Oh god, I still got a lot of mushrooms to clean. I gotta go get my dryer out of the car so I can dry more mushrooms. That needs to happen. Alright, I am actually going to add just a little bit of water to get this really moving. I'm just cooking these mushrooms to get them stabilized. I will cook other things with them later. I particularly like adding these Leccinum to stews. So last year I made gourmet sabzi, which is a Persian sort of herb stew with like black lime and stuff like that. And I used oxtail and a bunch of Leccinum. It was really, really tasty. So I think I'm going to try to kind of recapitulate a similar stew. Most likely, shoot to make something like gourmet sabzi with these. But because you saw that huge table of mushrooms behind me, I'm just trying to get everything kind of like smaller volume and cooked down so it's not going to go bad on me, basically. So the first step for me right now is just getting heat on them. This is sort of like triage when I got up this morning and mushroom hunted for like 6 hours and then drove 3 hours. And so this is triage of me trying to figure out what the heck can I do before I go to bed and just try to get all this stuff put away. And I live stream when I do this so that I can sort of stay motivated and, believe it or not, focused, because it helps me just not space out on the couch, which is all I want to do right now. But because we're cooking mushrooms and we're live streaming, we're here talking to you guys. So yes, I need to make mushroom for more mushrooms. I don't have mushroom. That's why I need to cook them. Alright, so here's another look at the Amanita muscaria. So you can see the water has gotten yellow again. So there's still more of the muscimol ibotenic acid compound leaching out of them. But after this double boil, they're pretty much good to go. I could boil them one more time if I wanted to be really certain, but I've done this enough times to know that, 2 boils is really, really enough. And actually, speaking of boils, I'm gonna bring this up just one more time to really make sure it boils. So this is how you make Amanita muscaria edible. Because it's so funny, like the videos I have about it go viral, either because people keep saying, it's toxic, don't eat that. And then the other half of people see me cutting it up and be like, you're wasting it. Or if I label it toxic, then, people tell me, it's not toxic, it's trippy. And so it's like, no matter what I do to try to educate people about this mushroom, I'm always doing it wrong in someone's eyes. And some people tell me I'm irresponsible for teaching people about amanitas. Which I see their point, but also I disagree, because no one knows anything about amanitas because people refuse to teach others about them. And, it's such a silly convention for people to kind of gatekeep mushrooms and gatekeep knowledge. So we're going to come over to the sink. Actually, I guess I need to do this one-handed again. Hang on, throw on my trusty glove. Pick this up. Bring this over. Woo! Yeah. There you go. Okay. Sorry, my phone is kind of messed up. So my camera keeps switching. One of my phone's lenses has this like weird pink sheen. And yeah, I gotta go to the Apple store. Either way, there's some boiled Amanita muscaria. Just steaming away. No longer red. We boiled all the red out of it. Now, here's your look at the Leccinum. Getting real soupy. So I'm just going to cook this down to all the water and the moisture goes away. That's the plan. forgot one. Stick it in, it'll get cooked down enough still. Okay, so I'm going to cut up some mushrooms to dry. So I'm going to cut these into thinner slices than I was for when I'm cooking them, because I want them to dry out in the dehydrator. This one's real soggy soft. I'm glad I'm not cooking it. It's almost the edge of not wanting to dry it, but I brought it home, so gosh darn it, we're gonna try to use it. Let's throw this part out. Okay, I'm gonna put you guys back over here. I'm gonna give this thing a stir. Big bubbly mess. Boletes. Alrighty then. These are getting there. These are getting there. It's get all kind of sticky on the bottom of the pan here. It's on some oil, but there's still a lot of liquid to cook off here. All this goop. Oh, sorry, Baghead, I missed your comments. You had questions? Oh god. Well, I've made a ton of videos about Amanita muscaria, and if you want to learn more about Amanita muscaria, you can watch them. I talked about it on this stream earlier, so you can rewatch this. Or you can go watch any of the sort of longer videos I've made about Amanita muscaria. I did a whole podcast about it last year, and how there's so many misconceptions, especially when it comes to Santa Claus and reindeer and all this other stuff. I mean, the long and short of it is basically just that it's a mushroom that grows around the world. It's ectomycorrhizal. It contains ibotenic acid, which is toxic and can be a neurotoxin and can put you into a coma if you eat a bunch of Amanita muscaria raw. If you decarboxylate ibotenic acid, i.e. through heat or like low pH, you can turn it into muscimol, which is an entheogenic substance. It is a GABA agonist, and it feels a lot like alcohol. So some people use that for its sort of entheogenic, inebriatory effects. And that is what people mean when they say Amanita muscaria is trippy, but it is not trippy like psilocybin or magic mushrooms. It causes more of like a sort of fever dream delirium than it does like an actual trip. I mean, again, your subjective experience of a trip is always different, so to each their own, but I do not think that Amanita muscaria and muscimol are a very pleasant sensation, personally, in my experience. I'll take a little bit to help me get to sleep, but I did not enjoy the experience to the point that it made me want to take like a larger dose. It is legal though, and so a lot of those things that are sold as microdose gummies actually contain muscimol. They don't contain any actual psilocybin. But I think the person who wanted to know about that isn't even on the live stream anymore, so say Levy. He will never know. But yes, I encourage everyone to try mushrooms on something other than just as a pizza topping or just in a pasta. Mushrooms are an incredible food source, and they cook mushrooms around the world, so pretty much every cuisine has versions of mushroom dishes that are absolutely delicious. Asia in particular has a lot of mushroom cuisine and a lot of different mushroom varieties that they eat regularly, and there's a lot of stuff that we don't eat regularly that, well, we could and we should. So okay, I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. Getting real close here. It's good to cook these down low and slow like this. Really cook off that slime. Yeah, Whittier mushrooms have great texture, totally. I had them in like a cold sort of Chinese style salad the other night. They're really wonderful. What's cooking? I'm cooking Lexinum. These are scaber stalks. They look like this when they're fresh, but when they're all cooked down, they look like that. Right now, I'm just cooking them to kind of reduce the volume, stabilize them, and later I'll put them in like a stew with some oxtail and some other delicious stuff. But right now, I'm just trying to get this cooked down so I can go to bed. I also cooked down some Amanita muscaria. So I boiled it twice, and so now it's safe to eat as a mushroom. And I also have some porcini that I need to cook up and deal with, which I should really start working on those now. I need to figure out what to do with all this when it comes off the heat. Yes, these mushrooms have a really, they're not super earthy and strong like a portobello. They have a sort of more slippery but also more like chewy, meaty texture than a portobello. And a nice, mild, slightly sweet flavor. This particular species has a bit of a, I don't know, almost like an animalistic funk or something. You know, there's a certain, it's not meatiness, but it's like a mushroominess, almost like a beefiness kind of thing So I like to pair this with really beefy, meaty things. I've done Lexinum with, I think, a pork knuckle that was marinated in koji and cooked that down with a bunch of Lexinum and like dashi and mirin and sake and stuff. That was delicious. And last year I did the gourmet sabzi, which is probably what I'll do again with oxtail. So that's the kind of thing that I like putting these into. I've also done a lot of like, bean stews with a smoked turkey neck or ham hock or something like that. They're good for that kind of thing. Okay, so there's the Amanita muscaria we boiled off, and I'm just gonna stick all this into this pan. Whew. Let it cool down there before I try to stick it in a Tupperware. I'm just gonna give this pan a little quick rinse so I can get some of the stuff out before I put the porcini in. So, if no one was watching, I didn't actually end up adding oil to those Lexinum, because I didn't really need it to some degree. I kind of pulled them out of the pan before they started sticking too much. They did leave a lot of goop in the pan. I'm trying to get the goop out so that my porcini don't end up tasting like the Lexinum there. So there are those. We're going to come back to the board. The chanterelles I'm just going to put away in a bag. I'll probably put these tight little Lexinum away as well, because those will last. These, if I have the energy, I'll go set up as a time lapse. And now the porcini. This is where we must turn our attention, my friends. Okay. God. I gotta determine which one of these will last and which one of these need to get cooked immediately. Most of them probably need to get cooked immediately. A few of them might last, but you never know. I've had bad experiences trying to let porcini get old, so it's probably best to just cook it all right away. That's generally what I think and feel. So I'm probably just going to wash all of these and then try to just get them stabilized. Now this big one I'll dry out. There's a look at all the porcini. Okay, I'll load up all my little piggies and give these a wash. Because they're dirty. They're dirty little piggies. Some of them are cleaner than others, but we're going to rinse them all equally. Wow. Oh, God, I am tired. All right. Sorry for my dirty ass sink. Yeah, I mean, you can eat porcini raw. If these were in better shape, I would consider doing kind of a carpaccio style thing where you shave them thin and then put olive oil and like lemon juice and salt and pepper and stuff on them. That's pretty good. My favorite to do that with is butter boletes, and I don't have any of those. So I'm not going to do that with these porcini. I'm just going to cook these down and probably freeze these too, so I'll have a little stash of porcini for another time in the year. So, like I said, sometimes I try to like grade the porcini and save some little ones to cook throughout the week. But more often than not, I just forget about them and then they go bad. So I'm kind of making the executive decision tonight to just kind of try to cook through as many of these as possible in one big go. Because it's not just the bugs that'll get the porcini, there's a mold called hypomyces, which you can't even see it on the mushroom, but you can come out in the morning and just find that your entire haul has gotten covered in this sort of white mold that makes everything really bitter and toxic, and that sucks. So that's part of why I'm just gonna wash all these and cook all of them with no delay. Because I didn't get that many compared to how many I thought I was gonna get. Sometimes I really score big this time of year. I didn't, but it's still early in the season. And I bet if I went up later in the week, I could find more. Not sure what my week is looking like yet, but I don't think I'll go back up because it's supposed to rain a lot more, and it's pretty miserable hunting mushrooms in the rain. I love mushroom hunting and I love rain. I just don't love mushroom hunting in the rain unless it's it's like a nice little kind of sprinkle. You don't mind that, but when you're out there and you're like wet down to your underwear, God, that's not fun. Foraging is much less fun when you trudge around in wet socks and wet underwear. Let me tell you what. That's when you just want to go inside. And you start to realize, like, oh, this is why people pay for mushrooms, because this is kind of miserable. And/or it's hard to find mushrooms. People aren't going to tell you their spots or where to go exactly. So you just got to learn about them and figure it out. All right, so it's a pretty nice big pile of porcini here. I'm just going to I'm not going to do any special technique. I'm just going to literally whack them apart and put them in a pan. That's what I'm going to do. I'll probably cut these in slightly smaller pieces than I did the Lexinums, but maybe not. Some of these stems are so big. Ooh, that's a nice one. Right. Yeah, some of these are going to be a little buggy, and that's okay, because once they're cooked down, you don't notice it. Some of these actually are in better shape than I thought they'd be. I'm impressed. That's nice to see. Pleasant surprise. Yeah, I like that. Less buggy is always good. More buggy is okay. I don't like more buggy, but it's okay. Thankfully, these are less buggy than we thought they'd be. Maybe because they're so fresh. You know? So fresh and so clean, clean. So fresh and so clean, clean. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I do know that some of these have bug holes, so I'm sort of holding my breath waiting for the buggy ones. Oh, I thought that one would be buggy. It's not too bad. Whoops. Losing porcini. Alright. I gotta scoot some of these off. Whoop. Okay. Gotta make room to cut up more porcini. So again, you actually can't eat this mushroom raw. I prefer it cooked, but it's okay when it's raw. So you totally could just bite one of these buttons, although, you know, I prefer to like season it with like salt and pepper and cook it down. It's going to taste better. But it's totally edible at this stage. Flavor gets more complex and nuanced when it's cooked, which is what I like about it. All right. Okay, this last one is the one that I was sort of most worried about bug-wise. Doesn't look that bad. Yeah, that's fine. I can handle that amount of bug damage. Doesn't bother me, because when it's all cooked down, you won't even notice it. Okay, into the pan we go. We're getting there. Alright, here's a trick about cooking boletes that you will not see on other channels. Put some water in there, because I actually want this to get all soupy. That's kind of the point. Boletes, and particularly king boletes, get kind of bitter when you brown them too hard. So I like almost sort of steaming them in their own juices kind of thing to start. Put some of the non-buggy pieces on top. Most of these did not have much bug damage, but there was one or two that had a few bug tracks. No, more than one or two, but the bug damage was relatively insignificant, which is part of why I'm cooking them now rather than later when the bugs have had more time to kind of go through these. So there we go. Bunch of salt. And we got the heat jacked up, and we're gonna just let these rip, cook down. And I'm gonna work on putting away the chanterelles and some of the other mushrooms, and I still have to cut up the big porcini. Oh gosh. Earlier when we talked about Hypomyces that grows on boletes, it's Hypomyces chrysospermus. That is the bolete eater mold. So I found several boletes while I was out hunting that were just covered in mold, and eventually they go from being sort of white mold to this like weird chrome yellow mold. But it turns the boletes toxic and bitter. And so honestly, all boletes, usually just rot into a pile of mush. I don't feel bad about picking them when they're young and they haven't fully developed, because often they don't even get a chance to fully develop before they get overtaken by mold or bugs or something. So, unlike chanterelles, which can grow for like 2-3 weeks, or even longer, boletes are usually done after about a week. So, I pick them and eat them. Getting foamy. There we go. Whoa, that's very foamy, very liquidy. I didn't realize they'd get quite so soupy. I didn't need to add any water at all. Protein foam. Scoop off a little bit of this. All right. There we go. So just for perspective, this is what we started with, and this is where we're at. So, whoop. Man, my phone just struggles right now. I'm sorry. AV quality is not at the best, but at least you can see what's going on. Oh geez, my phone's gonna die. Come on, Porcini, we gotta get you done. I gotta go to bed. It is late. Okay, these are getting pretty good. You keep cooking that liquid down. The thing I want to do is if the liquid starts browning up around the edges, I might even start wiping it off. Because you get too much browning on porcini like this, they get bitter. And I don't like that. So later on I can get them brown and really like get them crispy and do more for the flavor and the texture, but right now just kind of getting them cooked to this base level is really good. So we're getting there. Cooked down the Amanita muscaria, so I got that all bagged up. So that's Amanita muscaria cooked down, and I double boiled it to get all the toxins out. Cooked down a huge pile of Lexinum, the scabrous boletes, and then these are all the king boletes. With the dry fry method here, I did not add any oil or butter before I put the mushrooms in. In fact, I actually added a little bit of water to help get them soupy like this, and that really helps them cook down evenly and quickly. And allows me to cook a lot of mushrooms at one time instead of like trying to sear one piece at a time in oil, which is a fool's errand. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to cut the heat and a tiny bit more salt. Let those cool down for a little bit. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. Transfer all these porcini into a Tupperware. I'm using glass Tupperware so I can put hot stuff in there. I don't want to put hot stuff on plastic. There we go. Oops. Sorry. There we go. Oh dear. What did you do? YouTube, what does this tell me? Rotate device back. Yes, we are upright. Oh. Okay. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Ha. So here's all the porcini. This is the king bolete. That's this mushroom. And then we've got all of these lexanum that I cooked down. So I'm gonna put these into this other container. Hope that's big enough. Just barely can I fit them all in there. But I'm glad I've got 2 glass containers that are big enough to handle all these mushrooms. I've also got all of the cooked Amanita muscaria too. So it was a lot of work to cook down all those mushrooms, but we made it. Thank you to anyone who actually hung in here till the end. I can't imagine anyone actually watched this entire thing. But if you're rewatching it later, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. That's how you cook and process mushrooms. So you know how to do it now. Lay them out. Wash them, cut them up, cook them, put them in a bag, put them in the fridge, put them in the freezer. Just don't let them go rotten on your counter. If you took them out of nature, it's your responsibility to do something with them. So that's what I did. All right, now I'm going to bed. Have a good night. Adios. Bye.